Cathy Engelbert has made a lot of mistakes as WNBA commissioner. I think she just made one of her biggest, and I'm going to play you a clip. She was scheduled to go on the Dan Patrick Show to answer some of Dan's questions about everything that's been going on with the WNBA. As you all know, things have really ratcheted up recently with Alyssa Thomas and the fist to the throat, the knee to the groin, not even a foul called during the game, and then her and the WNBA media, of course, turning Alyssa Thomas into the victim, making serious accusations against Caitlin Clark fans and showing zero proof for those to back up those accusations. Nothing has gone to the authorities, which, if those were legit, is absolutely what you would do instead of crying victim in the media. So Dan said, "Hey, Cathy, man, why don't you come on? We'll talk about it." And look, I respect Dan Patrick. He's been doing this a long time. He's one of the few people out there in this space that I says he's good at what he does. Doesn't mean I agree with everything he says. No one should with anybody, but he's good at what he does. And I think he would be very fair. He would be tough, but he would be very fair. In fact, in terms of what we will call normal sports media, she'd probably get a fairer shake with Dan than many others. So it was all arranged. And well, I'll let Dan take it away from here. And then I want to give you 8 questions that I've put together that I would ask Cathy Engelbert if given the chance. And if you like them, if you think she's the answer, help me get this video out there. Like, comment, subscribe, share it as well. I really would appreciate it. So let's take a listen to Dan.
Yesterday, we were hoping to do an interview with Cathy Engelbert. She's the WNBA commissioner. Todd spoke to her a couple of nights ago, and we had a pairings party. Todd went up to her. She's been very friendly to the show. Last year at this event was friendly to us. And Todd said, "Hey, we'd love to have you on. There's a lot of questions. People have not heard answers from the commissioner." And she said yes. So yesterday, after the show, we waited almost 2 hours for her. This was scheduled. She was going to do a meeting in her hotel room, a conference call, and then she was going to join us.
It was scheduled. They waited almost 2 hours. What is one of the things we've been saying over and over and over again about the WNBA? It is unserious. It is unprofessional. You are the commissioner of the top professional basketball association on the women's side in the world. You schedule an interview and you don't show and you don't contact them beforehand to explain that you can't show and why you can't show.
So Fritzy, for at least 90 minutes, is looking just for an update. We're trying to figure, we're standing by, we're waiting to interview her. They didn't, balk at anything, didn't say you can't ask anything. And we thought, okay, we're going to be able to finally ask questions about Caitlin Clark, the WNBA expansion, a lot of different things. And we waited and we waited and we waited. And then we got word, Todd did, that the commissioner said that the WNBA staff, the PR staff, said that she is not allowed to do this. They would prefer that she did not do this.
The PR, again, this is after the fact. If you are going through your PR department for something like this, you do it before you say yes. But also, hopefully, you're good enough at your job that you've realized, at least since Caitlin Clark entered the league, your PR department, your PR staff is awful. They're some of the worst people at their jobs anywhere. And you would have fired them long ago. And you absolutely should be firing them for this, because this is something Cathy Engelbert absolutely needed to do. Now she's getting even more bad press. The cries about what's going on are going to get louder, and you're going to get more backed into a corner, and it's going to be a bigger problem going forward.
You're the commissioner, and you're listening to the PR department, which is fine, but did you check with PR before you said yes to us? We promoted it all day yesterday. Now, look, I know people get busy, people have agendas. The people, Like it was her opportunity to finally say, hey, you can ask me the tough questions, okay? I thought this was going to be a good thing for the WNBA because people still want answers here. There's so many people who have an opinion, agendas here. And this was a chance to sit down. And yes, would the questions be tough? Yes. Yes. And I'm sure that had something to do with it. But she went on a radio station in Kansas City, but from what I was told, she was only going to be asked about expansion. They were not going to be, tough questions.
Shocking.
So it's just disappointing. Go back to when the Caitlin Clark incident happened. We reached out to the WNBA all morning long. We needed, just give us a comment. Does anybody have a comment on this? Is anybody there at the office? We couldn't get a hold of anybody. So Paulie, during the show, is trying to track down somebody so we can at least let the WNBA have their say, have their voice, get out in front of this. We're just trying to be a journalist here. That's all. We're just trying to ask questions. But don't say yes, and then all of a sudden somebody probably said, in my opinion, oh, maybe we shouldn't do this. Well, at some point, you have to do this. I mean, if you want to be treated as a serious league,
there you go.
Then do these. This is what happens. These are tough questions, but this is a fair outlet for you, a fair platform. I will treat you with respect. But when you tell me, and then 2 hours later with no update, and then we get a feeble response, like, come on. You don't want to do it. You won't. The commissioner of the NFL does not want to come on this show.
That a little bit. I'm going to leave it there and give you my reaction, my thoughts. I have those questions for you as well. This is, and Dan didn't go there, but a huge part of the problem here that we've talked about here and there is the WNBA, whether it be players, coaches, general manager, the commissioner, have never been held responsible for anything in their lives, right? So I don't know if that is broken through to Cathy Engelbert's brain or to the PR department's brain that at some point where this is going, you are going to need to answer some tough questions. You are going to need to make changes. Otherwise, you may not like the consequences of your actions this time. I can tell you that for sure. Now, let's talk about some things Cathy Engelbert needs to talk about. And speaking of, I'm being fair here. I think you let me know in the comments. I stayed away from a lot of the questions I think some of us would like to ask. Let's talk about the Alyssa Thomas incident and immediate response. Commissioner, in the recent game against the Phoenix Mercury, you know the one, Alyssa Thomas was seen driving a closed fist into Caitlin Clark's throat. We know how dangerous that could be, could end her career, could be life-threatening as well. It doesn't take much pressure for those who are about to freak out. While Clark was on her back, also driving a knee into the groin area, the previously injured groin area, a play that was initially completely missed by the officials to even call a regular foul, and later upgraded by the league to a flagrant 2 with I was going to say with a 1-game suspension, but then that's not really true. That's just what a flagrant 2 entails after the fact. So my question is, one, why wasn't this penalized in real time? Why did it take a post-game review and public outcry, because we know that played a role, for any type of meaningful discipline? Now, I would argue if you were trying to actually make a statement, it should have been 10 games. But why was nothing done until there was public outcry after the fact? What message does this send about player safety when the league's most high-profile star is repeatedly targeted? I know there were a few questions in that one question. But anyway, number 2, I would ask her about that's of data. Video review all shows Caitlin Clark has drawn nearly 20% of all flagrant fouls since entering the league, despite, 1, not being one of the most physical players, and 2, as we saw with that no call from Alyssa Thomas, you could argue there are a lot of fouls that aren't called at all that would actually be flagrants, so it would be a much higher percentage if things were called correctly. Combine that with incidents like the Dejanay Carrington eye poke and others, the Kennedy Carter thing, the Marina Mabrey thing, the J.C. Sheldon thing. Does the league acknowledge that Caitlin Clark is being disproportionately targeted and not doing anything about it? Because if so, if she is disproportionately targeted, what specific measures beyond the generic boilerplate player safety statements that get made once in a while, what actual specific measures are being implemented to address officiating lapses, specifically with Caitlin Clark, to deter this type of behavior? Number three, the WNBA Players Association, it issued a strong and long statement and pushed for consequences for the journalist in terms of revoked credentials when esteemed longtime women's sports reporter, groundbreaking women's sports reporter and pioneer Christine Brennan simply asked Dejanay Carrington about her eye poke on Caitlin Clark in the 2024 playoffs. Yet, that same players' union has remained silent on defending Caitlin Clark despite her being on the receiving end of repeated physical incidents time and time again. Why the disparity, do you think, in union and league responses to protect one player versus another? And how does this align with creating a safe, equitable environment for all? Because you know that there's a potential investigation coming on exactly that. What do you say to those accusations? On media, oh yeah, I want to get into the fake investigation first. I got to ask her about the fake investigation and lack of apology. The league launched a high-profile investigation into alleged slurs yelled by Caitlin Clark fans directed at Angel Reese after the Fever put BTA to Angel in the Chicago Sky in the 2025 home opener for the Indiana Fever, a sold-out televised game with extensive audio mics and cameras everywhere with 17,000 fans there. And yet you launched an investigation when no evidence at all was brought to you to trigger that investigation. You ultimately found no evidence, which means therefore it did not happen if you could not get evidence of such. Yet there was no public apology to the fans or, to Clark's supporters afterward. And there was no punishment to Angel Reese or anyone else who reported it, or players like Alyssa Thomas, who helped fuel the fire by saying she believed Angel Reese. Alyssa Thomas, who also, in another time, falsely accused fans of yelling slurs, as did Brittany Griner. Yet you've done nothing about those incidents because there has never been any proof given, just accusations that get made. Why the rush to investigate without proof in that case of Angel Reese, while incident after incident of on court, I won't even say physicality, dirty play with intent to injure being directed at Caitlin Clark, that's completely ignored? Why is the league ignoring the potential career-ending injuries that could happen to the only player they've ever had that has generated interest in the league? Now, following that Alyssa Thomas incident, much of the coverage and Thomas herself framed, hey, surprise, Alyssa Thomas as the victim of threats and abuse, to the point where the league issued a statement condemning hate toward her, while Clark, who was on the actual receiving end of the play, received no support whatsoever. Nothing went out to the general public. No statement was made from the league or from you, Cathy. How do you ensure the league isn't allowing or contributing to dangerous narratives that paint the victim of physical fouls as the aggressor or instigator when that victim is Caitlin Clark, and allowing that to turn into condemnation of her fans for being upset that you are not protecting the star of your league. Now, recently, a group of lawmakers, they sent a letter demanding answers on, I don't know, player accountability, foul reviews, protection from violence and harassment, unsafe workplace, harassment in the workplace, civil rights violations, right? DOJ, DOL, EEOC investigations into hostile work environment that I mentioned, civil rights issues that I mentioned, all centered around the league's treatment of Caitlin Clark. What specific data on foul disparities, discipline consistency, threat responses are you going to provide by their July 24 deadline? And how is the league addressing these federal concerns that are going to keep it from going further to a place where you don't want it to go? Let's see. You know what? I got to ask about the Dan Patrick thing itself. You were scheduled, Cathy, to appear on Dan Patrick's show to discuss these issues, among others. You canceled, but that wasn't found out till much after the fact because I believe they waited for about 2 hours and then tried finding an answer. You were not far from them, by the way, as they were covering the same golf tournament you were at. And I believe you were actually on the driving range within feet of Dan Patrick's show, but you canceled. I shouldn't even say you canceled. You no-showed, which is worse. And then you came back and said it was on advice of your PR team. With growing criticism, again, now to the point of Congress getting involved over player safety, your ratings reliance on Caitlin Clark, perception of favoritism or inaction, or worse, why would you avoid direct, tough questioning from respected voices like Dan Patrick? And when will you commit to transparent, unscripted answers on these challenges? Because they must be answered at this point. Caitlin Clark has been a transformative force for everything WNBA. I believe it was her rookie year, she accounted for 26.5% of the entire league's economic activity. 21 million plus viewer games in 2024. There hadn't been a single one since the first game of 2008. So the viewership, the revenue, the popularity of WNBA, all driven by Caitlin Clark. Yet incidents of rough play, I would say dirty play, actually, if I'm going to be more specific, selective union media responses, inconsistent, if not downright corrupt officiating, risk undermining her safety, her performance, her entire career, which also means stopping the growth of the league dead in its tracks. As commissioner, what concrete changes, not lip service, what concrete changes to rule enforcement, player conduct standards, punishment, and public messaging are you personally driving to protect your biggest asset and ensure women's basketball thrives long term without these consequences? I'm curious, Cathy. Let me know. I would love to hear from you. We should talk, you and I. It is going to help your league to have this conversation. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe. Y'all know the drill. I will talk to you later.